A once dominating empire is sinking in the waters of colossal failure. As the UK's economy, politics, housing, and inflation deteriorate, its ruling influence fades. And all of this can be tracked down to one man, Boris Johnson, who may have inadvertently destroyed the UK economy. We look at how he managed to get away with it and answer the big question: can the UK resist the challenges it confronts, or will it slip into obscurity? In July 2019, Boris Johnson assumed office with a bold promise to lead Britain successfully through Brexit and revitalize an economy strained by European divisions. Fast forward 3 years, and he exits amidst a self-inflicted political crisis and an economy on the verge of recession. The current scenario deviates significantly from the optimistic script. Unforeseen challenges weren't part of the plan, including a global health crisis and a conflict on European soil. In 2020, the COVID-19 pandemic triggered the steepest economic decline in the G7. Despite boasting the fastest growth rates upon reopening, the UK faced the worst recession in 300 years, exacerbated by its prolonged lockdown compared to other nations. Amidst these unprecedented shocks, deep-rooted structural issues have come to light. Enter Brexit, a parasitic concoction that has infected everything in the UK for the better part of a decade. Johnson notably pushed hard for Brexit, leveraging his fame as the former mayor of London and his right-wing columns to promote his ideas about the benefits of leaving the EU. Former Prime Minister Boris Johnson signed the Brexit Trade Pact 2 years ago, certain that Britain will thrive after leaving the European Union. According to Johnson, the Brexit deal would allow UK companies to expand their business with the European Union, giving Britain the freedom to forge trade agreements worldwide while maintaining smooth exports to the EU's vast market of 450 million consumers. However, in reality, Brexit has detrimentally impacted the UK economy. The United Kingdom remains the only member of the G7, an exclusive group of advanced economies including Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, and the United States, whose economy is smaller than it was before the pandemic. Years of uncertainty regarding the UK's future trade relationship with the European Union, its largest trading partner, have taken a toll on business investments. Despite having a UK-EU trade deal for almost 2 years, business investment in the third quarter was still 8% below pre-pandemic levels. The British pound has also suffered, resulting in higher import costs, fueling inflation, and failing to boost exports, unlike other regions experiencing post-pandemic trade growth. Brexit has erected trade barriers for both the UK and foreign companies that use the UK as a European base. This has hindered imports and exports, discouraged investment, and contributed to labor shortages. Consequently, it's exacerbated inflation, negatively impacting workers and the business community. The co-director of the Centre for Inclusive Trade Policy at the University of Sussex, L. Alan Winters, believes that Brexit is most likely the cause of the UK's comparative economic hardship. The sense of despair in the UK economy is evident as striking workers protest over pay and working conditions while historic inflation levels erode their wages. Simultaneously, the government is reducing spending and increasing taxes to address budget deficits. Here are some of the diverse effects. Number 1, businesses tally the costs. Britain chose to leave the European Union in June 2016, but its exit from the single market and customs union did not take effect until December 24, 2020, when a free trade agreement was reached. This trade deal, known as the Trade and Cooperation Agreement or Brexit deal, officially began on January 1, 2021. While it removed tariffs on most goods, it introduced various non-tariff barriers like border controls, customs checks, import taxes, and health inspections on plant and animal products. Before Brexit, a farmer in Kent could easily send a truckload of potatoes to Paris just as they would to London. Those times are gone. Michelle Ovens, founder of Small Business Britain, a campaign group, hears daily stories from small businesses about the challenges they face. They said that they hear about the nightmare of paperwork, transportation issues, couriers, and goods getting stuck for weeks. Over the past 2 years, things have taken a severe toll on small businesses, according to Ovens. Researchers at the London School of Economics estimated that during the first year of Brexit, the variety of UK products exported to the European Union decreased by 30%. This decline is likely because small exporters found operating in smaller EU markets unfeasible. Consider the case of Little Star, a UK company specializing in children's jewelry. It initially thrived in the Netherlands and had plans to expand to France and Germany. However, since Brexit, only 2 out of more than 30 Dutch customers are willing to tackle the cost and paperwork required to obtain stock from the company. Shipping times for products that used to take 2 days have now stretched to 3 weeks. Import duties and sales taxes have made it challenging to compete with European jewelers. Consequently, Rob Walker, who co-founded the business with his wife Vicky in 2017, is now seeking growth opportunities in the United States. Isn't it astonishing that we now have to look across the Atlantic to conduct business because it's so complicated to trade with neighbors just 30 miles away? What was expected to be a triumphant era marked by Brexit success and economic rejuvenation has culminated in a complex legacy of crises. This legacy has profound economic consequences and far-reaching societal implications. Number 2. Permanent trade damage. Replacing what was lost by giving up unrestricted access to the world's largest trading bloc won't be easy for Britain. Since leaving the European Union, the UK has only managed to secure significant new trade agreements with Australia and New Zealand. However, the government's own assessment predicts that these deals will have a minimal impact on the UK economy, with a long-term increase in GDP of just 0.1% and 0.03% respectively. In stark contrast, the UK Office for Budget Responsibility, which provides economic forecasts for the government, foresees Brexit diminishing Britain's output by 4% over a 15-year period compared to staying in the EU. Long-term projections suggest that exports and imports will decrease by approximately 15%. This trend has already become evident in the initial data. In the fourth quarter of 2021, UK goods exports to the European Union were 9% below 2019 levels, and imports from the EU dropped by 18%. Goods exports to non-EU countries also saw an 18% decline compared to 2019. The UK now appears to be less reliant on trade as a share of its GDP, experiencing a 12% drop since 2019, which is 2.5 times greater than any other G7 country, according to the OBR's March report. The decrease in exports to non-EU countries may indicate that UK businesses are struggling with higher supply chain costs after Brexit, resulting in reduced competitiveness, as suggested by Jun Du, an economics professor at Aston University in Birmingham. Brexit has inflicted lasting damage on the UK's trading capabilities. While recovery is possible, it will be set back for several years. The Centre for European Reform, a research tank, calculates that UK goods trade will be 7% lower in the 18 months leading up to June 2022 than it would be if the UK remained in the European Union. Investment is also weakened by 11%, and GDP is 5.5% smaller, resulting in an annual loss of £40 billion or $48.4 billion in tax revenue. This amount might account for 3/4 of the spending cuts and tax increases outlined by UK Finance Minister Jeremy Hunt in November. Number 3. A strain on the economy. The United Kingdom is expected to have one of the weakest performing economies among developed nations this year. The Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, or OECD, anticipates a contraction of just 0.4% in the UK's economy, putting it ahead of only Russia, which is under sanctions. Germany's GDP is also forecasted to be 0.3% smaller. Similarly, the International Monetary Fund, or IMF, predicts a meager growth rate of just 0.3% for the UK's GDP next year. This places the UK ahead of only Germany, Italy, and Russia, all of which are expected to experience economic contractions. The Confederation of British Industry, or CBI, a prominent business group, reports that the decline in private sector activity gained momentum in December and has persisted for 5 consecutive quarters. Martin Sartorius, the principal economist at CBI, foresees this downward trend deepening in 2023. He states, businesses are grappling with a series of challenges, including escalating expenses, labor shortages, and weakening demand, all contributing to a pessimistic outlook for the upcoming year. Although Brexit isn't solely responsible for the UK's cost of living crisis, it has certainly complicated the solution. The senior advisor at Oxford Economics and former Bank of England official Michael Saunders points out that the UK chose a particularly hard form of Brexit after the referendum, which maximized the economic impact. Any hopes for economic benefits from Brexit have faded. A recent British Chamber of Commerce survey of more than 1,168 businesses revealed that 77% saw no increase in sales or business growth due to Brexit. Over half of the businesses found it challenging to adapt to the new trading rules. SiteRight Construction Supplies in Dorset, a manufacturer, described importing parts from the EU as a costly and time-consuming ordeal due to Brexit's bureaucratic hurdles. Nova Dog Chews, a canine snack producer, noted that it had to establish a presence in the EU to maintain its trade, resulting in significant costs that could have otherwise been invested in the UK. A UK government spokesperson told CNN that the government's export support service has offered practical assistance for implementing the Brexit deal. They emphasize that the deal is the world's most extensive zero-tariff, zero-quota free trade agreement, securing access to key service sectors and opening new global opportunities for UK businesses. Facts, the economy, and political honesty were all once important. Brexit has convulsed our political culture, just as Johnson has shattered our political norms. Perhaps the Prime Minister's genius is that he serves as a valuable figurehead for both his admirers and adversaries. Every public amusement requires a hero and a villain, and Johnson is both. And this is how he managed to get away with destroying the UK.